really creates less of an opportunity for those guys to make our football team. So, we're going to find guys with the expanded practice squad, which we got spots for 4 veterans there. So we're going to have to find the right guys to be able to expand the practice squad with. But, it definitely hurts the opportunities, of those CFAs to get out there and really, to show us what they have, and even more so without any preseason games.
All right, welcome back to Broncos Country Tonight. Just heard from John Elway on what the back half of the roster is going to look like. We're now joined, of course, by Hall of Famer Steve Atwater. Steve, let's go right to it here. If you're one of these guys in the back end of the roster, how are you approaching this training camp knowing you don't have preseason opportunities to prove yourself?
Well, first off, you got to make sure you have a backup plan just in case football doesn't work out this year. You got to come in and do practically everything right. I mean, you can't be missing assignments. You can't, catch the coronavirus and give it to other guys. You got to make sure that you're being disciplined and everything. And then you got to come out and you got to perform when you have the opportunity. And those opportunities are going to be limited.
I mean, it certainly is. And Ben, I know that in years past, we've oftentimes framed the practice squad as kind of the consolation prize. It's like, well, you're a young player. We kind of like your upside. We're going to hold on to you. We want the option maybe to bring you up. But this year does feel a little bit different. You have the opportunity to have 6 vets potentially on your practice squad, all the way up to 16 players. And you know that teams are going to utilize the players on the practice squad. It's an extension of the roster. So can we maybe even frame the back end of the roster right now even just a little bit different as more just kind of the extension to the 53?
Yeah, I think you have to look at it as almost the insurance squad instead of the practice squad this year. Yeah. I think that what we're getting here is we're getting guys that ultimately either would have made the roster on the back end because the team wanted to keep the guy, but also wanted to make sure he got his vested veterans and all that kind of stuff. And guys those guys you can move to the practice squad now. You got a little bit of a versatility. You got an ability to move them around.
Steve, will that work for a player? Like you're in the player's mentality here for a second. Will that work for any of these guys? I mean, you're selling the 53 active versus a practice squad or the insurance squad. Will that work for the mentality of these guys?
Come on, versus not having a job in the NFL, it absolutely works. And I think guys will be grateful that they're on the team this year, especially considering going into camp, they have 10 less guys. The guys who are in the room, those 80 guys, they're fortunate to be not one of the 10 that are gone. So I think that those will be some cherished spots, and hopefully the guys that are on them, if they have to play, they can step in and do a good job and not not have the coaches regretting that they didn't keep someone else.
Absolutely. And that kind of leads me naturally to the next question here, Ben. And something we've talked about on Broncos Country Tonight, the radio show, is the construction of that insurance squad. Oftentimes with practice squad, it is kind of framed as a way of, oh, well, you weren't quite good enough to make our 53, or we didn't quite need you right now. But that's just not the same this year. So the construction of this insurance squad, Ben, how would you go about it, knowing that you have 6 spots that you can actually give to vets?
As far as constructing it, I would say that you probably want somebody at every level. You probably want one backup player at every level in an ideal situation. You can construct your roster a little bit more evenly. And then you have, one DB, one linebacker, one defensive lineman, one offensive lineman, one receiver, one running back, that kind of thing. You could kind of find a way to balance it out. And that way you've got, like I said, that insurance against one of those things going down. Now, there are other ways to do it. You can, wink and a nod, phone call somebody, hey, stay in town. We're going to bring you up if we need you, that kind of thing. But I think in the end, you want to be balanced in your approach.
Wait a minute, do we need a backup kicker?
Well, I've called over there to the Broncos, and I've said if they need a washed 40-something, pseudo athlete, that I am here for them. So backup
you got to be able to kick more
than
field goal longer than 15 yards.
No, we're going for 2 every time.
Yeah, actually, initially I was going to say, Steve, are you volunteering your services?
Oh no, I can't kick, but I'm just thinking about that though. If the kicker somehow catches COVID and has to sit out for a week or two, what will we do? I mean, if we don't have another kicker, I guess they could bring someone in last minute, but man, it's food for thought.
No, absolutely. So I want to talk about maybe some names here that are like those vet spots that we're sort of talking about, because this is kind of a new world for us. We haven't ever had a situation where we're talking about guys with service accrued as potential for practice squad. Most of the time we're talking about young upside players that you just want to get a little bit longer look at. So what are some names? It feels to me, Steve, let's start with maybe the tight ends, because it's one of the first times in a long time that we've had such an amount of talent at tight end that you're not going to be able to keep all in the active roster.
Yeah, and I tell you, I think that, a majority of these guys could start for any team in the NFL. And we're definitely fortunate to have a tight end room with that much talent. That being said, we know that the focus is going to be on some of the younger guys, the newer guys that they brought in, on Noah Fant from last year. So I think just knowing that those guys are quality players, I wouldn't want to see those guys go to a different team. I would try to keep them around, knowing that they could get poached at some point in the season. But if for some reason there's not room for them on the 53, or if they want to, if not room for them on the 53, then I'd love to keep them on the practice squad.
Yeah, another position there on the offensive side of the ball is wide receiver. The Broncos have made a heavy investment. We're getting to the sixth guy, Ben, and it seems like we're talking about, it might be tough to keep a guy like Deshaun Hamilton, who's only a couple of years removed from being drafted.
Yeah, the way this is set up, it may actually play in Deshaun Hamilton's favor, a guy who kind of figures to be on the bubble given his limited skill set versus, what he's been able to produce. And you look around at what they brought in, this could be a chance for him to stick around and maybe get it right and come back next year. So for guys like that, I think this could be a big boon. A guy like maybe a DeMarcus Walker that you could stash there. I think that, it could be a boon for guys like that who kind of right there marginally on the roster, marginally off the roster, and the team can make a decision or delay a decision another year with another year in the scheme.
All right. Well, thank you, Steve.